Here.
Alex Hansen,
Here.
Kenny Wilson,
Here.
Brittany Jameson,
Here.
Brian Davis,
Present.
Christopher Walker,
Here.
Gary Dunmeyer, Joyce Kai,
Here.
Lorraine Cargill,
Present.
George Dezama,
CJ Lan on behalf.
Zatek Marin, Kim Delaney, Felipe LaFaso, Christopher Marsh,
Here.
Jonathan Rainsvold, Natalie Crowley,
Here.
Mo Alturk, thank you, Jessica Keller. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. All right, so moving on to 1B, modifications to the agenda. Staff, are there any modifications to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. If not, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Motion passes. Any objections? Right, motion carries unanimously.
Could I clarify the second? Alex, thanks.
I think that was Alex. That was a second?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, item 1C, motion to approve the minutes for October 1st, 2025. Are there any changes to the minutes? Any committee members have any comments? If not, may I please have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented?
So moved. Seconded.
Well, all right, so motion by Chris, second by Denise. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item D, general public comments on the agenda items. So instructions on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. Have any comments been received, staff?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to 1E, comments from the chair and member comments. Yes, Denise.
Yes, I just wanted to recognize Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council with the City of Green Acres helping us. We did receive last month at the Florida Bicycle Summit a Wheel Achievement Award for our Green Acres Safety Action Plan. And we appreciate all the efforts with the Treasure Coast, and we continue to look forward to our partnership and all of the good things that'll be coming ahead of us. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So the Green Acres Safety Action Plan is a really interesting plan.
Microphone, please.
Using my playground voice, often the mic isn't necessary, but I get that. So, but just to mention the plan on behalf of the city, it sets forth a premium bicycle network amongst the entire bike network in the city, and it grows it from 5 miles to 25 miles, and really takes a very close look at ways to differentiate some of the major county roadways that many of us struggle with because those county roads carry a lot of commuter traffic. But in a city like Green Acres, they're local roads. I mean, there's kids riding to school. A quarter of the population of the city is under the age of 18. So that's an enormous school-aged population getting to the 12 public schools and I think 3 more private schools in the city. And so just again, as a resource document for other municipalities, it has a really interesting typology. The city led in developing that adds those very difficult bicycle pedestrian facilities along those corridors with some adjustments to make them a little more civilized. So, and thank you for the shout out. It was such a pleasure to work on the plan for the city. Appreciate that.
Awesome. Nice work. Any other comments from committee members? All right. And no raised hands, Ruth. Okay, thank you. Moving on to, I have no comments. TAC liaison report. So at this time, I'd like to invite Nathan, the principal multimodal planner, to provide an update.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome in to the final meeting of the calendar year. just have a couple of updates for you this month. So we'll get started. Wanted to make everybody aware of Older Driver Safety Awareness Week. This is an opportunity to develop a plan as folks are aging drivers. How are you going to adapt to that new normal of driving or transportation as an older adult? That's celebrated December 1st through 5th, or recognized December 1st through 5th. You can find more information at safemobilityfl.com. We also are now in full swing on the MPO call for projects. So we have that information posted on our website. You can search funding to find the pages for those two funding programs. I would encourage everybody, and this also includes our LRTP amendment that will occur next year. I would encourage you, you can take a look at the website, but if you have questions, feel free to reach out to staff. We're here to be your support as we go through the process. And look forward to having, most importantly, pre-application meetings with you. The applications close on February 13th, but you need to be working in the intermediary period to have those meetings with us and be prepared for that application deadline, and reach out to staff if you have questions. Wanted to make everybody aware of the Countywide Safety Action Plan survey that's ongoing. So if you go to the really long URL that's here, Palm Beach County Safety Action Plan.com, there is a virtual open house where you can learn more about that process to develop a Vision Zero action plan that serves the county, oriented towards county roads. There's also a survey that has been extended. Not sure exactly when the county will close that, but you can provide input. And then there will be more input opportunities next year. So just want to make you aware. We have an upcoming event to tour the Palm Beach County Traffic Management Center on January 22nd, 10 o'clock in the morning until 11:30. You can get more information about that on the website, search TMC Tour. Certainly would encourage folks who are interested in traffic operations around the county to come and take this tour with us. It's a very interesting facility, and you can learn more about some of the investments that are being made in the region to improve operations around the county. Upcoming, it's no longer a save the date. You can now get registered for the Safe Road Summit. That's going to happen February 26th and 27th. Early bird registration closes in a couple of weeks. I believe it was December 14th. So if you want to take advantage of the reduced registration rates, do that soon. But you'll find more details at thesaferoadsummit.org to learn more. And then, as always, just reminders to get involved. You can go to our website, search participate, and find more ways to find enjoyable activities to take part in with our agency. But to get all those updates in your website, from our website into your email, just sign up for our newsletter. That's a great way to stay in touch with everything we have ongoing. Looking forward to the holidays. Want to wish you all happy holidays and look forward to seeing you in the new year. And that concludes my update.
Thank you, Nathan. Are there any public comments? Does anybody have any comments on the report? Nothing? Okay. Okay, we're moving on. We have action items. It's that time of year again already, to elect officers for the 2026 calendar year. First, I would like to open the floor nominations for the chair. So I am currently serving as chair. If the committee, I'm happy to continue to do so if you all support that. If not, there's opportunity for other nominations. And at this time, let me just see. Yeah. So are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Natalie to continue as chair.
Second necessary for those nominations, or is it just open nomination?
I'm not sure. Staff? No seconds. Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none. Thank you. I'll gladly accept. Thank you all. So at this time, we are moving to the nominations for vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
Is Denise interested in continuing to serve as vice chair?
Yes, I'd continue if nominated.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? All right. We're moving forward with this, with the same chair and vice chair. Thank you all very much.
So we'll just need a motion, a second to finalize that.
Oh, okay, thank you. So, may I please have a motion, for the chair
So moved for both, the slate.
slate? Second?
Second.
All right, motion by Terrence, second by Lorraine, all in favor? All opposed? Great, motions carry unanimously. Sorry, I missed that one. The motion part. Okay, so we are moving on to action item B. This is the amendment number 2 for the fiscal year 2026-2030 Transportation Improvement Program, affectionately known as the TIP. At this time, I'd like to invite Matthew Massa, the Senior Transportation Planner, to present this item.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, members. I'm Matt Massa, Senior Transportation Planner with the MPO's Programs Team, and I'm here to present an action item for recommendation, Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP, for fiscal year 26-30 Amendment 2. The TIP is the list of projects by phase and funding source over the next 5 fiscal years. The active 26-30 TIP was adopted back in June of this year, and we are currently operating under the TIP's 2026 fiscal year. The goal is to maintain work program stability, keep projects programmed, and on their production timelines to ensure the final phase of construction is carried out when scheduled. And then again, the presentation will focus on that second amendment. So what is required for a TIP amendment? The table here lists 6 specific criteria that can trigger an amendment, with 2 criteria tripped that called for today's action item. The first 2 are new safety projects being added, while the remaining 3 projects actually exist currently in the 26-30 TIP, but are having their scopes modified to an extent that requires approval, mainly due to length, but also from cost adjustments. As a reminder, this only impacts the 5 listed projects in this amendment shown in the table. The 2 projects being added are railroad crossing safety projects. The first project on the left is a railroad crossing south of Military Trail and Beeline Highway, south of the Military Trail and Beeline Highway intersection. CSX has indicated reliability issues with the existing signal system and determined that to avoid future disruptions, maintenance was required now. The second project on the right is just east of the Congress Avenue and Southwest 10th Street intersection. The city of Delray reached out to the DOT for financial assistance after it was determined by the South Florida Regional Transportation Authority, or SFRTA, that signal and pedestrian gates and crossing surface work would be required to meet a request from the city for additional sidewalk work on the crossing's south side. Please note that both projects utilize federal railroad crossing improvements, not local MPO funds, which is listed all in the backup. The 3 existing projects being amended are all signal upgrade and improvement projects. Revisions are bolded and underlined in the table here. The changes are seen for signalized intersections. The changes seen for signalized intersections are from them being reorganized between project numbers. There are recalculations of project lengths from the reorganization, which is a criteria that can and did trigger an amendment. The table on the next slide will show the specific intersections for each project proposed in Amendment 2. The table above shows the specific 3 intersections affected. So for the first one is Forest Hill Boulevard at I-95 is going into a separate safety project. Glades Road at Town Center Boulevard is being incorporated into FM 4481351. And Congress Ave at Donald Road is being incorporated into FM 4498791. The amendment is currently open for public review. Members and the public can visit palmbeachmpo.org/tip to learn more about the projects, use our interactive tip review tool pictured here, and provide public comment until final action at the December 11th, 2025 Governing Board meeting. Projects are also directly linked to the tip review tool via the agency's MPO mapping tool, where any map projects were seen today at palmbeachmpo.org/map. With that, staff are asking for a motion to recommend adoption of the Transportation Improvement Program fiscal year 26 to 30 Amendment 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
And are there any committee member comments on this item? Yes, Alex.
Just a question. When you had the table indicating the scope for the intersections, the one before,
Sure.
that one, I'm just curious, the traffic signals, the length in miles, I'm just curious how that is calculated since these are intersections. I don't understand how we could have 12.5 miles of length for 11 signalized intersections. The intersections, the distance should be very short. Just curious.
Yeah, no, sure. And FDOT is on the line, so if they want to elaborate more on my explanation, feel free. But basically, they use a general 0.1 or 0.2 miles for the intersections, just a map. And they use that to do calculations that are basically required for the STIP amendments that are required at the federal level. So they're basically given a length, even though they're a point. And then a lot of times when there's recalculations, sometimes the length between the signals. So for instance, these projects have multiple signalized intersections throughout the county. Sometimes the lengths between them are also involved in the calculations, which is why you get like a 12-mile signalized project. So I would recommend, if you're curious, look at the work length, not the project length.
Yes, CJ.
Just a question on the same location, that 12 and change it to 11 page.
Oh, sorry, which one?
So the intersection number, the count is reduced by 1, but the total project cost was more than double. Can you articulate the reason for that?
We can work with FDOT and get you a reasoning for the cost change, but most of them was advanced construction cost changes. So
Okay. Yeah, I had the same question, CJ. That one of the costs was actually going down. Usually it goes the other way. So, yeah, just curious, because usually that wouldn't precipitate a change to the TIP, but I'm assuming the bundle of traffic signal dollars precipitate the change to the tip?
right.
Yes? Okay. Any other, are you good, CJ? No other comments? All right. Are there any other committee comments?
So is the
Sorry.
follow-up. Is it because of the construction, the infractions in the construction industry, or I just did not understand what you has told the committee.
I can get you the specifics on why the costs have changed,
Yeah.
but I don't have them right now with me.
Jeffrey Roberts on, see if that's available.
Okay. We have Jeffrey Roberts from EFTA. I don't know if he can hear us, but if he wants to elaborate on the project costs.
I can try to give an answer here. The project costs are based on the actual construction cost, and the more we look at the project, we get it refined and get a better cost. Again, these are projections for what the construction cost is going to be, and we haven't really even started design yet, so it's still a long range estimate. Does that
Okay.
clarify everything, or is there, can I answer something else for you?
And that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Do any other committee members have comments? Staff, that you got, Jessica and Jim arrived? Okay, great. All right. Hearing no further discussion, may I please have a motion for this item?
So moved.
Motion by Brian, second by Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to informational items. We have item 3A. This is our 2050 Strategic Intermodal System SIS Unfunded Needs Plan. So this will also be presented by FDOT. So at this time, I'd like to invite the district to come up and present this item. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kent Walia with the Florida Department of Transportation District 4, and I work in the Planning and Environmental Management Office. I'm joined today with my co-project manager, Tammy Campbell. We are managing the Strategic Intermodal System Multimodal Unfunded Needs Plan. We're joined here with Kittleson and Associates, our consultant. This is Tyrone and Rajvi there in the back. Just want to let you know, we're going to have a booth here in the back. We're going to present some slides to you today, giving you some general overview of what the SIS Multimodal Unfunded Needs Plan is. And then also, if you have any comments or questions, we'd like to get your feedback after the meeting. We'll have some booths in the back. We'll show you some projects that we've identified so far and just some of the areas of the maps. Next slide. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. So to provide a general overview, I know this is a technical audience, but what the SIS Multimodal Unfunded Needs Plan is, it's a 2050 planning document that identifies unfunded needs to improve the transportation systems on the Strategic Intermodal System network. Strategic Intermodal System is mostly limited access facilities, but they can also be large, higher speed corridors that connect transit hubs like your airports, your seaports, to other airports, seaports, and regional activity centers. And then there's also SIS connectors too as well that connect your airports, for example, to I-95. And these are strategic corridors, and we'll list those maps. So what the Unfunded Needs Plan does, it identifies needs on these corridors, and then eventually those unfunded needs graduate to what is the SIS cost feasible plan. Then you have a second year and the first 5 year, and then you have something called then it gets into the work program after that. Obviously, funding and priorities play a role. We work very closely with MPO staff to try to rate those priorities, and then we work with the locals too as well through the MPO to get your feedback as well. Oh yeah, and projects in the Multimodal Unfunded Needs Plan, as I mentioned, are a wish list, and they're not necessarily delegated for funding often. So some ongoing tasks that we have going so far is we started this effort around, I would say, April, May of this year. We had stakeholder workshops with our MPO partners. One of those outreach is coming here to the Technical Advisory Committee to get your feedback as well on these projects. We've identified some from the 2045 plan. We've identified some from the SIS, not the SIS, the Palm Beach MPO Long Range Transportation Plan 2050. There are SIS projects in there too as well. We also looked at our regional transportation demand model, ran some other analysis, checked plans and studies that were created not only by FDOT, but also the MPO as well, for other projects and strategies to improve transportation on these corridors. So as I mentioned before, kind of the process of these documents, the SIS Multimodal Unfunded Needs Plan is a central office FDOT document. We as District 4 create a component of that document. So we're running our own analysis, identifying projects, and we contribute this to central office. They create the large master document that's posted online. You'll see a 2045 there on now. They did the 2050 cost feasible plan. We're doing the multimodal unfunded needs plan a little out of order. But then what will happen after that is you're going to have a second 5-year plan and the first 5-year plan following that in the upcoming years. So the next cost feasible plan would likely be the 2055. So where we're at now, we're in the fall. As I mentioned, is a central office document. We've done data analysis, gathering information, identifying projects. Our next steps here, as we're wrapping up our stakeholder outreach in the first fall area, central office is looking to finalize this document by the summer of next year, so around July. We're going to start vetting the needs, start putting them into our SysPM tool, and then start creating long-range estimates, detail estimates that can be used if these projects tend to get prioritized and graduate as well. This is kind of an illustration, as I mentioned before, what a sys corridor and connectors are. Some of you guys might be experienced with that already. And then I'll turn it over to Tyrone from Kittleson to present the next couple slides.
Thank you, Kent. I'm gonna make sure I get my table up with the specific projects really quickly as my computer just timed out on me. The strategic intermodal systems larger scope is, as most of you probably likely already know, for high speed, high volume roadways. We think about physically moving vehicles and freight interregionally and not necessarily for localized trips, understanding that a lot of local trips are facilitated by the strategic intermodal system. With that said, there's also project funding eligibility. And so some of the project funding eligibility examples that were extracted from the online document that you can find on FDOT's website are on display on this particular slide. But of importance is understanding that capacity is what's prioritized predominantly on assist. Capacity looks like traditional adding lanes. Typically, there are other types of capacity projects, interchanges, and the sorts. I'm going to get into some of the projects really quickly that we have identified as draft projects for the 2050 unfunded needs plan. Unfortunately, because of funding eligibility constraints, some of the types of projects that might increase travel speeds won't be eligible for SIS funding because they're currently not eligible. And one of those easy examples is signal retiming. If you coordinate an entire corridor of signals so that you have great progression and consecutive greens, which helps those commuters or whomever's traveling through that corridor maintain a higher speed. Currently, those sorts of projects aren't eligible for SIS. Kent mentioned that we've extracted projects from two sources in an attempt to build our 2050 unfunded needs plan. And so the Palm Beach County portion of that plan, the two sources that we looked at were the Vision 2050 plan. The map illustrates the projects that we've taken out of the Vision 2050 plan. That same map is at the back of the room in the event that you want to inspect it a little bit more. I'll talk a little bit towards the conclusion of this presentation about what we plan on doing at the back of the room at the conclusion of this meeting and seeking you all's input for needs going forward into the future. The predominance of the projects that appear in the unfunded portion of that 2050 plan are exclusive guideway or fixed guideway projects. You can see that through the purplish hashed lines that appear throughout. The second source of projects. And so as Kent mentioned, this has traditionally been a wish list. And so those projects, a good slug of them that were included in that 2045 plan that was completed in 2017 have advanced into the cost feasible plan and marched their way forward into the DOT's second five and then first five work program. But a good portion of them have not advanced. And so those projects that have not advanced, we vetted earlier via email with some of the persons here at the MPO to say, hey, here are the old projects from the 2045 plan. Which of those would you like to carry forward into the 2050 plan, as they still very likely may be needs. And so what's illustrated on the slide here are those projects that were in the previous plan that we got concurrence on advancing into the 2050 plan. Similar to the other map, this too is available at the back of the room. A big part of this is not just the unfunded projects that exist, but it's also identifying needs separate from unfunded improvements. And we identify those needs through studies and analyses. There's been a number of different studies and analyses that have been conducted that cover the geographic area of Palm Beach County. Florida DOT's State Safety Office in Tallahassee's conducted a safety study. And these locations that I'm showing on this table are locations that have been determined to have very poor safety performance, in which case we're looking at developing projects to mitigate the safety needs at these locations. These projects don't yet exist, but these are the areas that we've identified on the SIS network within Palm Beach County where we're going to create safety improvements. And here's more of those projects. And real quickly, the analysis, what made that determination is that based on your roadway geometry, let me go back. Based on your roadway geometry, your volume, your posted speed limit, a number of inputs, there's a predictive analysis that can determine the number of crashes that will be expected at these locations. These locations exceeded that prediction in the actual observed number of crashes extracted from Signal 4 analytics. And so wherever those number of crashes exceeded what should have been occurring based on that roadway geometry, volume, speed, et cetera, then we flag those locations as locations where we need to do something. Really quickly, we will be looking for feedback from you all. We have a couple of poster boards at the back of the room. One is laying flat on the table. The others are on the tripods. The one closest to the left of the table is the one we'll be using. We have sticky notes, and we'll be looking for you all, as you're willing to provide us with input on other additional needs that you may have here in Palm Beach County that you would like to see addressed in the 2050 SIS unfunded needs plan. Real quickly, I'll run through this. This is just sort of wrapping up what the plan is going to consist of. We're going to associate costs. There are a number of needs currently that don't have costs that we'll be looking to coordinate with you all on costs so that you all can provide costs for those. We'll do consolidation. We'll follow up as part of a thorough vetting process to provide you with that draft list for you to review and look at. And then we have this a tool, the specific tool, the SISPM tool that's behind the firewall that we use to kind of enter all the projects into to actually build out that plan that central office administers, and it's on the website currently. That's it.
Thank you very much. Very nice presentation. All right, staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, committee members, does anybody have any comments? Yes, Lorraine.
Just a question. How does the state allocate funding towards this program? How is that handled?
So the unfunded needs plan is not allocating funding to it. So these are not funded projects, unfunded projects. It would be prioritized by central office, and then funding would be allocated if they're prioritized into the cost feasible plan.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Alex.
Yeah, if you could please go to the penultimate slide, the one that had some of the projects that have higher in safety concerns or.
Four clicks back.
Again, the one before, I guess, that one. I guess a comment on project number 12, item number 12 there, which is I-95, the section of I-95 between Palm Beach Lakes Boulevard and Okeechobee Boulevard. We have seen other studies, other presentations from FDOT and their consultants showing a heat map of crashes on I-95, and I believe that is the highest section of crashes. And again, there's only 1 mile between the two exits there. A lot of cars coming in and out at the same time. And so I understand why it's identified there. I guess my concern is there's another project by FDOT, which is the high occupancy toll lanes or hot lanes project that is looking at including an entrance exit to future hot lanes at that precise spot. Many of us in this committee identified our significant concerns about the placement of that exit entrance to the hot lanes at that location, in part because of the fact that this is already a very unsafe area, and having that additional entrance exit there would only make it worse. So, and I know there was going to be a follow-up presentation by FDOT on that subject. I believe it was delayed. I know there's some issues with changes to the state statutes about hot lanes and other things that may have resulted in that delay. But again, I want to emphasize the concern of me and other members of this committee about the possibility of adding another layer of lack of safety or of safety problems to that particular section of I-95. So I just want to emphasize that. I understand why this is here, but again, FDOT is including another project that may make it even worse in the opinion of several of us here. So I want to highlight that to you guys, since you have also identified this project as one that has safety concerns.
Excellent. Excellent feedback. Thank you for that. We'll make sure we coordinate with the project manager of that project and make sure we get that addressed and coordinated, because definitely that's an area of concern. Thank you.
Chair, if I may add.
Absolutely.
I remember that very lengthy discussion that Alex, and I represent Riviera Beach just to the north, and I believe there was supposed to be a PD&E study, and we requested that it be extended to south of Southern, because to your point, the high volume of Southern and that bad weave right there of also dropping in just south of Okeechobee. And so the quarter length should have been south of Southern to, I think it was north of Palm Beach Lakes. Or no, I think we took it all the way to 45th Street, because that's where that's where the problem is, with like multiple in and outs. And to his point, adding a hot zone in and out, which, yeah, so I believe there's a study out there, to your point, that was supposed to come back because we asked for the limits to be extended to actually address the real problem, which is the Southern Boulevard drop-in lane and the merge, and then there's two merges within 100 feet if you're heading northbound and you're dropping off Southern. So that's probably a lot closer to the causation of that problem than, so we don't want that lane merge ignored when this is addressed. But I believe there was a study out there that was supposed to come back to look into this more deeply.
Yeah, we asked for this committee, actually made a motion asking for this to be reassessed. And again, to expand the areas and probably move the placement of that entrance exit to the group that is working on the hot lanes project.
These are the exact type of questions we were looking for in the breakout session at the end. So we definitely encourage that.
I think it's also, if we could ask staff to kind of hunt that down on what happened to when we would see or where that landed, because I know that it was a motion, and if that got integrated with whatever the appropriate document is, or who at the DOT could answer that question of what happened after that motion was approved for expanding the scope of that analysis.
Yeah, I don't know. I know, I remember that discussion as well, and I'm not sure what ultimate action was taken by the governing board on that, but I think that to the points being made here, I think it would be interesting to see the interface of, that entire study, if it is indeed moving forward, how not just that section of 95 is taking into consideration those improvements. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost sounded like the methodology that you're using is crash data and safety data to determine these projects for additional needs and capacity. Because I almost think that would be, there may be other solutions other than adding capacity, playing into some of the ideas. I don't know how much capacity is available along some of these corridors. And I think looking look more comprehensively at some of that, and definitely interfacing this entire study that's going on with the hot lane to blend that together. So, but is that true? Is that are you looking, did I hear correctly in that you're really looking at crash data as sort of the sole means as your measurement to determine capacity projects for the future? I would just, say there's probably a lot more happening other than, in that in terms of solutions.
Definitely, there is a lot more analysis happening, and I'll turn it over to Tyrone in just a second. I think he was just noting the kind of the top two for that, because this came from central office's safety office. So they were just presenting these hotspot areas to us for our analysis, but they've went through a lot more stuff.
I absolutely agree with the observation, and that there's a potential that adding more capacity could increase speeds and possibly worsen the severity
Right.
of the problems. Other analyses that are going on that weren't mentioned, we're doing travel demand model forecasts, running it for 2050 to get 2050 volumes, and then we'll use volume to capacity ratios, and then we'll identify hotspots that exceed a volume to capacity ratio threshold, and we'll evaluate those for future improvements as well. Kent and I were just talking about the ongoing progress this morning about resiliency analysis. And so resiliency is another one of those analyses that will be conducted. And then where we find that roads are inundated, whether it's flooding or other resiliency issues, we'll develop improvements at those locations. I think, Madam Chair, you bring up the point, and that is a great point, in that we're somewhat limited, and I presented this in an earlier slide, in what improvements we can recommend only because of what's eligible for SIS funding. And so there would be times, Kent mentioned TSMO as he was walking away from the microphone, there'll be times when TSM&O might be a suitable alternative, but vetting that through the current process to see that it's eligible will be sort of where the rubber meets the road.
I see. I think Nathan is
Just
respond to some of the comments. Yeah.
just
hopefully.
in regard to raising that staff could try and track down the status of the managed lane studies that were brought up. We'll bring that up with FDOT, report back to the committee, to all the TAC members, exactly what we find out status. And I'm not familiar with the discussion or any actions that were taken as of the last conversation that was referenced here today, but we'll try and get some feedback for you and report back.
Thank you so much. My only other comment was, I have a question, I guess. Is ultimately there going to be a refined plan that comes before this committee? I know that you all are still going through the process, but ultimately before adoption, is there going to be action taken by this committee on this plan?
Yeah, there can be. So we're leaving it up to the MPOs if they want to follow up presentation. We can definitely do that and show you guys the findings as well. We'll have draft documents. But as I mentioned, this is a central office final document. We're going to have our component that we can definitely share as well.
I mean, I personally would love to see that document. I think it would be important for this committee to be able to see what the outcome is, because it sounds like you're still going through several steps, and some of these, albeit long range improvements, would be interesting for all of us to see. So for whatever it's worth, I think that would be a recommended action if the board, if the staff agrees. And then my only other comment is that, some of these long range plans that you all are working on go hand in hand, potentially, definitely, with the county plan that's going on, the countywide improvement program. I the entire what do we call it? The whole countywide transportation master plan, where I know that they're discussing, several of these long range ideas, Southern Boulevards being discussed, many ideas are being discussed. So my only recommendation is that there's stakeholder coordination in that process. We have 2 county reps here. There's also a whole initiative going on that the consultant WSP is leading. And I would recommend that you all, as you're working through this process, coordinate, provide the feedback, because the county's gearing up, and I think the two run parallel with each other, at least on some of the long range SIS facilities.
Excellent idea. We'll make sure we do that. Thank you.
Chair.
Yes. Terrence.
Question for you. It seems that this analysis you're running is extremely hamstrung because of the constriction of SIS funding availability and what it can be spent on. I guess what you're generally hearing from this committee is if you just ran the analytics for its purpose and intent without the funding constriction, I think some of the things you've heard would be able to be incorporated in the report with the asterisk of, here's what we can fund with CIS funds. Somebody's got to pay for the rest. And the general concern of the body could be encapsulated in the report. Is that a potentiality or option of doing a holistic analysis and then segregating, here's what we can pay for with CIS funds, and then we need somebody to tell us local, state, any of the other fund potentialities are going to have to pick up the tab for this, where we can actually have a true plan that incorporates all the needs of the community?
The step that you're talking about now is the cost feasible step. So that takes the unfunded wish list projects that don't have any fundings allocated. We're not looking for matching funding, local funding, any of that for the unfunded needs. It's just identifying needs, coming up with general planning level estimates, and then finding out what the needs or what the costs are. So then when the MPOs look at that unfunded needs list and they put that into their LRTP, then when we start coming out with the cost feasible plan, that's when you start saying, okay, what projects can get partial funding? What projects is the state looking to prioritize? Then you start looking at what can be funded, either for some phases. Some phases are funded, some phases are not funded yet. So you can get like a design phase, PD&E phase, then the construction phase 2 as well.
Okay, then I apologize. I got the impression that you're only doing analytics on elements that can be funded with this funding, and that's why I was constricting some of what you're looking at.
No, we're putting out everything on the table. It's an unfunded, unconstrained list.
And so it's an unfunded, unconstrained list. So we can put all types of projects, even if it can't be CIS funded, so it gets on the list and we'll figure out the funding later.
There's still data-driven stuff that we're looking at. Yes, we're still looking at the needs. We're identifying the needs using a methodology, and then we're coming up with costs, coming up with projects.
Well, if it's unfunded, does it matter if it's a need or desire? Put it on the list.
It's a planning process.
Especially if we're figuring out the funding later, it's a desires list, not a needs list.
Tomato.
Unfunded needs is the best way to say it. It could have desires in there, but we want to try to, wrangle it in and try to make sure that we're addressing things that have a need to it.
Okay. Thank you, Terrence. Brian.
I was just going to ask if you could put back on the 1 through 6 list that there was something that caught my eye, and I wanted to look at that. I may have a follow-up, so if you want to move on,
Oops, sorry.
and then I'll come back to me.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Brian. I misunderstood. All right. So next up, so Brian's going to take just a pause in a moment here, and I'm going to go to Lorraine.
Just a quick question. I just wanted to confirm if all the tri-rail stations are part of that transit fixed guideway you mentioned. Because I know previously worked hard to try to get the tri-rail stations on the CIS network.
The stations themselves and the connectors to the stations have historically been on the CIS. And so that roadway going from the corridor, whether it's Interstate 95 in most cases, that connects to the station, then is eligible for SIS funding as designating CIS connector. I will look to see if the stations themselves, real quickly, we would have extracted that from the MPO Vision 2050 plan. And I don't see in the projects that we extracted, I have a table that's open in front of me. I don't see in the projects that we extracted that it's specific station improvements, but instead that it's transit fixed guideway. So
transit fixed guideway, is that the station?
So I'll give you an example. I'm going to read just some of them. You all in the room might be very familiar with some of these. There's one of the ones at the top of the table, Lake Worth Road Enhanced Transit from State Road 7 to US 1. There are a couple of other transit fixed guideways, enhanced transit projects, one on Boynton Beach Boulevard, one on Atlantic Avenue, Both of those have the same project limits. They're going from Military Trail back again to US 1. Glades Road, Palm Tran Route 91 has enhanced transit, Butts Road to US 1. So that map that I showed earlier with the sort of purplish hashing on it is for these projects, and they were extracted again from that 2050 plan. But if there are specific tri-rail type of improvements and you all coordinated with SFRTA on this, it's not too late to get those projects included in the plan.
So those roadways you're talking about, a lot of, sounds like a lot of Palm Trend routes, but you're saying if perhaps a station is along that route?
If there's a specific project for station improvements that meets that SIS eligibility, then I think that should be entertained
Okay,
for inclusion.
because we have received funding from the SIS program in the past. Okay.
All right. Well, that's interesting. We're gonna go, Brian, are you ready?
Yeah.
And then next we'll do CJ.
Sorry, I had to collect my thoughts here. So let me clarify, are these just, are they, is it an arbitrary numbering or is this a ranking and where there's the most need? As like from the safety office analysis?
Yeah, these aren't, the numbers that you see there is not a ranking.
Okay,
It's
right.
just a regular number, just so
Okay.
if someone could point it out, they could say number 4.
All right, so then to follow on from that, so the number one on this, that's like a 20-mile segment of State Road 80. That's from effectively downtown Belle Glade to east of 20 Mile Bend. That's a very long segment of road that's very, very straight with like 2 bends. It's a totally different set of safety issues. And then also the one number 5 Connors Highway, if that's where I think it is, that's 98% in Martin County. I think Sandcut is literally just south, but that northern segment in Martin County has a bunch of new mines that are approved. So that's a whole different issue if you've got mining traffic coming in there.
Right, we'll definitely filter this. So there is some
Okay.
coordination with other counties on some of these corridors, but we'll,
Right.
because remember, at District 4, we got to look at the entire
No,
district.
no, I understand, but I was just saying for a Palm Beach County, it's like,
Right.
I don't think anybody here even knows where Sandcut is. Sandcut's literally like 250 feet south of the county line.
Understood.
So,
Apologies, yeah.
no, it's okay.
Definitely.
All right, thank you, Brian. CJ.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I recall in the last LRTP 4 or 5 years ago, the Palm Beach County is still utilizing the same tools and the VFC ratio to identify the major project. But this round of the LRTP, I don't see that county is continue to utilizing at least for the tool to for the project ranking or even come up with the project. May I know the reason for that?
That's,
Nathan has his card up.
Yeah, I was just actually going to remind everybody that we've asked FDOT to stay behind so that you can speak with them one-on-one to the degree that you all feel we need to have this discussion on the record. That is totally fine, but just wanted to remind everybody in the interest of everyone's time, staff are going to stick around and we can answer these questions and follow up offline. CJ, to your question, the V over C review was a thorough and exhaustive review in the 2045 LRTP. That process was not undertaken in the 2050 LRTP in favor of goals and objectives that were not as, call it, as capacity driven, more focusing on our broader objectives and performance measures that the MPO reports on at the time we were the TPA. So that's why you don't see that thorough and robust review of capacity purely driven in the LRTP. You're hearing V over C will be a factor in this review. And that's something that capacity would be a factor in review of projects moving forward. It just wasn't part of the process that was undertaken for the 2050 Vision 2050 document.
Okay.
If that
Understand.
answers your question.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So that brings up my next, the heart of the question is, the FDOT continue utilizing the innovative idea to address the congestions issue. That's great. And but have FDOT follow up with the post implementations study to justify if if measure of effectiveness is as projected before the project was taken on. The reason I bring this up is I got a negative feedback on the crossover left turn interchange that implement on the Grass Road. And what I'm saying is the travel time and the intersection delay is actually worse than before the project was taken on. So I was curious, and then and I even get into the big data database to confirm that. And I utilized the year before the construction and then the year after the construction was completed. I compare the several measure of MOE, including the travel time index, and I find out it was the case. The travel time index was worse by more than 20%, and it was actually, to my surprise, a big surprise. I thought that the crossover idea, it got to be work. I mean, if you're working from the modeling perspective or even other states of the field proven project, they will indicate that the great travel time saving in the reduction of the intersection delay. So I was surprised by what I have heard and what I have tested out myself before. So if not done, could FDOT possibly conduct the post-implementation study for that particular the interchange to justify for that and identify the reason why, if it indeed is worse, why is the reason causing causing the worst performance of that? So you can use that as a feedback for the future deployment of the similar project.
Thank you for your feedback. I think I missed the implementation study you referenced at the beginning, and then I want to understand, I think you were talking about the Glades Road interchange. So you're talking about a diverging diamond?
Yeah, in Boca, Glades Road in the interchange with the I-95. Yeah.
So the diverging diamond. So what I could do, if you may, when we have the breakout session, we want to document that down, and I'll make sure that we address that question that you have to see if there's need for an additional analysis, and then look at the performance of it as well. It looks like that's what you're getting at. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for being here after the discussion for, specific project concerns and questions like this, as well as Nathan kindly mentioned. So we have one more comment card from Jim.
Yes, I was just wondering if any of the Brightline stations would qualify for enhanced transit. I mean, they're proximity assist. Is Federal Highway considered assist?
Yeah, I don't
highway
think
or-
so, because it's more of a private operation thing. I don't think it would be, but we'll look into it.
Okay, but is Federal Highway part of the assist system, or is it just I-95, Southern, these more? I mean, is it considered also part of that? Because I didn't see any Federal Highway road segments on any of the slides.
It depends if it's a CIS corridor. I'd have to double check. I think some may be.
Map in the back of all of the CIS corridors. I'm not sure if it made it into the slides, but that map, I see Tammy saying it didn't, but that map that's on the easel to the far left is the same map that's also on the table. And it includes every CIS facility that's in.
Okay, well, if you could check into because, the Boca station is relatively close to Federal Highway as well as West Palm, obviously, but
Definitely.
Yeah.
We'll check into it.
Okay. Do any other committee members have comments? Seeing none, we are moving on. Thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you for sticking around. We are moving on to item 3B. This is the SFRTA Transit Development Plan. This is an annual update. So at this time, I'd like to invite Lorraine Cargill, the Director of Strategic Planning, SFRTA, to present this item.
Good morning again. Okay. So this morning, I will provide the annual update of SFRTA's Transit Development Plan for fiscal year 2027 through 2036. I will briefly discuss the TDP process, highlight some of our funded and unfunded projects, and conclude with our ongoing coordination with each of the MPOs. And let's see if I can get this right. Nope. Okay, there we go. So TDPs are required for public transit agencies in the state of Florida to be eligible for state block grant funds. The plans typically cover a 10-year planning horizon with major updates completed every 5 years and annual updates completed in the interim years. So SFRTA's last major update was completed earlier this year and submitted to FDOT on the due date of March 1st. And so this particular annual progress report or annual update will also be submitted to FDOT on March 1st of 2026. So before I jump into our projects, just want to take a minute to highlight our Tri-Rail commuter rail service that SFRT operates. We currently have 19 stations throughout the Tri-County area. Our latest station was opened in January of 2024 in downtown Miami at the Miami Central Station, where we are co-located with the Brightline system. Also in July of last year, SFRTA began operating 2 limited stop express trains into downtown Miami, essentially what you'd call your one-seat ride. So we have an AM service from the West Palm Beach station directly into downtown Miami, and we have the corresponding PM train from the Miami Central Station back to our West Palm Beach station. It has about 5 stops along the way, so very limited stops, but it really gets you into downtown Miami in just over an hour from West Palm Beach. So that service has been very popular and doing very well. In fact, based on that service, I am happy to report that Tri-Rail's ridership has not only surpassed 2019 pandemic levels, but in fiscal year 2025, we actually reported our highest ridership to date of about 4.5 million. So we are really excited about that. Moving into our funded and unfunded capital projects. You can see, this is over the next 10 years, you can see that the purchase of new rolling stock is one of our top priority. In fact, in order for us to provide any more express trains, we need more equipment. We're really limited on our equipment. And so from that table, you can see we have about almost 200 million allocated to new rolling stock, thanks in part to about a $72 million grant we received from the federal government in 2023, and just over 44 million that has been programmed by the MPOs and FDOT for new rolling stock to increase capacity on the system. So we're very thankful for that. So again, that's one of our top priority. Unfortunately, due to our funding challenges, there are a few projects on hold, most notably our Northern Layover and Light Maintenance Facility, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, and also the rehabilitation of all our stations along the corridor. Okay. Now, for the Northern Layover and Light Maintenance Facility, most of you are familiar with that project. This particular MPO has been a major supporter and funding of that project. You all have helped funded that project. In fact, the Palm Beach MPO has contributed over $45 million to towards the $80 million cost of that project. FDOT has put in another 15 million in terms of funding. In fact, about 8.8 million of that funding came from the SIS program. So that's why I said we have received program through the SIS previously. And so that covers about 75% of the project cost. There's about 25% if SFRTA is covering. However, with our funding challenges at this time, that has, what's the word I'm looking for? That has threatened the funding for this project in terms of the construction of the project. Right now, we are currently about 90% completed in the design of the project. We were awaiting an agreement with the City of Riviera Beach to move forward with 100%. Thank you, Terrence. The City of Riviera Beach has now executed that agreement. That agreement will be going to SFRT's governing board in December, and then we'll be moving forward with 100% design. So that 100% design will be wrapped up by the first quarter of 2026. We can then move into procurement and then into construction of the project. However, at this time, due to our funding challenges, there is a shortage of funds for the construction. So just want to leave that there. We are working with our MPOs to see what we can do related to the funding. And then, we'll have to wait and see what happens in the legislature with funding for SFRT and the Tri-Rail system moving forward. So all hope is not lost. We're keeping fingers crossed that we can still move the project forward in 2026 towards construction. So speaking of our funding challenges, this particular slide shows a projection of our capital expenses and revenues over the next 10 years. The first 5 years is based on SFRT's adopted capital budget, which was actually approved prior to July 1st of this year and prior to our funding challenges. You can see the second 5 years, there are no revenue projections. That is because SFRT does not project its revenues beyond the first 5 years. For our 10-year operating program, you can see minor increases in our operating expenses. This is based mainly on inflation and just cost of living adjustments over the next 10 years. So even with our funding challenges, there are still some projects that we are moving forward. We are focused on making sure that our system is safe, as well as really trying as much as possible to improve the customer experience. And so we have been, over the last 2 years, really trying to rehab and overhaul all our rolling stock, our locomotives, our cars, our coaches. You can see we've stripped them out, putting in new seats, really trying to upgrade the train cars where passengers are sitting on a daily basis. As it relates to our pedestrian bridges, we are currently rehabbing about 12 of our 15 pedestrian bridges. We are about 50% completed on that project, and that project should be wrapped up by the fall of 2026. Many of you may have seen our newly wrapped trains. We are about 70% completed in terms of wrapping our fleet. We also expect to have the fleet fully wrapped by the first quarter of 2026. We're about 70% underway right now. The challenge has been our locomotives. We have limited locomotives, and so taking those out of service to get them wrapped has been the challenge. And then finally, most of you hopefully are using our new regional app, SoFlo Go. That was a partnership with all 4 transit agencies. as well as the Broward MPO that funded that project. That app is now available in the App Store. You can download it, and certainly two main features. It allows you to do trip planning throughout the region, as well as purchase fares from any of the 4 transit agencies. So that's quite an accomplishment of us working together with all our partners. This next slide just shows our ongoing coordination with each of the MPOs throughout the region. A lot of our capital improvement projects are included in the MPO's long-range transportation plans and transportation improvement programs. We certainly are very grateful for the support we get from our MPOs. To date, we have made presentations on the transit development plan at both the Miami-Dade and Broward MPO technical advisory committees. We will be presenting to both those boards in January. I know it said October here. Those meetings didn't happen. So we'll be presenting to Miami-Dade Governing Board in January and to the Broward MPO in February. I will be making this presentation to the Palm Beach MPO board next Thursday at your December 11th meeting. And then following all those presentations, we will take the final draft report to our governing board in February and submit our transit development plan to FDOT by March 1st of 2026. So that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorraine. Terrence.
Yes, Lorraine, could you go back to the funded and unfunded project slide? I think it was about halfway. And I'll get started. So about 10 years ago, we requested that the extension of service to the VA center be added to the LRTP, and it was, and I see that it is on the unfunded list. I think I saw about $116 million-ish for the cost there. I think the one that had the numbers on it. There's the left
okay.
and the right, the funded and unfunded.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is that some of that 116 million caused by the need for Coastal Link to get your service north of West Palm, or is that simply isolated? And this may be an over-specific question for the whole body, but as well, the point of that was that VA center services all of South Florida. So bringing transit to some of our most vulnerable veterans and getting them to that healthcare center was a priority for this region. Is there availability of other veterans-oriented funding versus transit funding to try to advance that very needed project in this organization? And we can take it offline. That exhale if we can take it offline.
I mean, I do think there are options out there. We did meet with the VA during the feasibility study. So far, we've completed a feasibility study just for the project. We did meet with the VA hospital. They were excited about the project. They were willing to seek some federal funding to help with the project as needed. They were also open to supporting the operating and maintenance costs for the station when that did get built. However, what's happening right now is we've just completed a feasibility study. The next phase is the PD&E phase. Until we get into the PD&E phase, we really cannot firm up those amounts and really go after it. That's the time to go after funding once you've completed a PD&E, because you'll have a lot more information to be able to seek those grant funding with. So that's the phase that we're seeking funding for at this time. And that will just give us a lot more information.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Right, Jessica.
This is for you to consider and for the group at large. The city of West Palm Beach recently entered into interlocal with Palm Beach County related to mobility fees and how those fees would be collected and distributed. And if you're not familiar, the mobility fees that are collected from development are applied to very specific projects. As the city of West Palm Beach and other cities are developing their plans, and also the county, we have had certain projects proposed by our consultant that the city of West Palm Beach has said, I don't know if we should be, collecting fees for an interchange. We don't have an agreement, first of all, but, maybe projects where we're increasing capacity in Palm Beach County, rolling stock, all of those capacity projects, maybe those are the types of projects we should be considering and collecting mobility fees for, because it's in our best interest to fund these capacity projects that are alternative modes of transportation. And I would like to talk to you and talk to our leadership about, whether or not we should put certain projects that you've identified into our mobility plan so that we can collect fees in support of very, very specific projects.
We are always happy to talk and meet with anyone who would love to support the system and mobility in the region. Absolutely. Thank you for that comment. And yes.
And I'm not really sure where other cities are with their mobility plans. But I know there was a number of us who were getting together early on talking about the development of those plans and the interlocal agreements. We probably should get together again and fill each other in where we are and try to identify what projects would be in our best interest to fund that are outside of our cities, that are much, much bigger price tags than what we are looking at in our individual jurisdictions.
Jessica, I'm happy to chime in on that. So when the city of Palm Beach Gardens adopted its initial mobility plan several years ago now, we did include projects that did relate specifically to SFRTA. So specifically, there was allocated funding for a tri-rail station. So the idea is that then that gets adopted in the plan, and then the monies collected in the future can be spent on such facilities. You have to be careful because those impact fees collected as adopted through the plan do have to be demonstrate that they directly mitigate the project. So that's the key. As agencies and cities move forward with the various interlocal agreements, which are floating around, many cities have adopted already. We know West Palm has. We're in the process of working on one as well. They're all a little bit different, but I think that many of the cities are actively moving forward with the interlocal agreement as required per state law. And different cities are in different stages of their adoption of mobility plans. So I would just encourage the cities, as many of them are moving in different phases of mobility plans, that you can include multiple facilities that include DOT, county, tri-rail facilities that ultimately, as long as there's a dual rational nexus, you can feed into that. The key, or the challenge, of course, becomes, the coordination that's necessary to actually bring those services to light. So the operations has always been the big question. And in particular, the big elephant in the room, of course, is the ultimate future and the operations of tri-rail itself. So, but I think having it in the plan is step number one. Having a methodology to appropriately collect those fees and feed in that dual rational nexus for those plans, that's important, because you don't want to be in a legal challenge to be able to, the money collected has to be spent and mitigate your project. But you do that by having a comprehensive plan. And West Palm's done a great job moving forward on that. So I'm happy to talk to anybody offline on what we've done so far toward that, but we do have money. allocated in our mobility plan. And then when we updated our mobility plan, we also carried that funding forward. So that if and when, I believe, that station comes forward to North County and the Tri-Rail Coastal Link does move forward, you know, there is opportunity for at least the capital portion for funding for the station itself. So,
Well, I think as planners, we are the optimists in the room,
right?
as Kim will constantly remind me.
Chair, real quick follow-up. I guess the question probably for you I'm not as familiar with the activities going on. Would it be worth, and this, I guess it's a question for everyone, a little update of where this is at globally with the county, and you gave a good synopsis, but a little time for an in-depth so we can all understand where you're at, where you're going, and be able to report back to our executives of here's the trajectory for the cities in the county and the relationship with the county, so that we can have sort of a little more conversation than this very brief impromptu update. Maybe put on the agenda in the first quarter.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is, you know, it's staff. I only know what I hear. So I'm not totally all familiar with every single jurisdiction. Not every jurisdiction is represented on this committee. So I just don't know. There's certainly a lot of, you know, there's a lot of different forums out there that are discussing the different times of, and the different, I guess, templates that are floating around there.
Maybe somebody at the
I
county
see
who.
Brian walking up. He
Somebody at the
might
county
have
who
some
may be
information.
touching all of them that could give us a general update, or who would be the right person to maybe help us all understand what's going on?
So we can make a request to the county staff that are on the committee to maybe make a presentation in the upcoming years about the status of the agreements. And then I would encourage maybe at least the members of this committee, because there's probably more members on this committee that are doing mobility plans than are non-members. A lot of the smaller municipalities probably don't have a mobility plan and fee that's of significance to report on. So what I'd suggest is working internally with the committee just to get a presentation from Palm Beach County. We can work with the staff, and then maybe a little bit of a roundtable presentations of where each municipality is with respect to their mobility plan efforts as a start.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Sounds good. I know I mean, I think the county's really busy working with all the different jurisdictions right now. There's, I think, active negotiations going on right now. So I'm not sure that their timing, but I think it's great if staff brings up that request, and ultimately at the right timing, it can be presented and discussed. All right, CJ.
Thank you. I have two comments, and I sincerely urge the Tri-Rail service consider enhance existing reliability of the service. I have a one-time privilege taking the train going down to Miami, doing my very important personal business, and the train broke down. And southbound train broke down. We need to wait for the next train to come, which is an hour. So I almost missed my the appointment. So because of that, and so before we consider spend the money expanding the network and so forth, please spend some money procuring more locomotive, and once the train broke down, you have a backup plan to resume the service, and having the train run on schedule, on time. And just on that 1 hour waiting, because there's no bathroom, there's no restroom on the train stations. And it was horrendous experience of that. Unfortunately, the broke down train, southbound broke down train, is still in the station. So I was able to get over to the other side of the platform, asking for the train facility to address that. So please also consider putting the restrooms facility in every train station, please.
Well, sorry to hear about your experience. But in terms of service reliability, that's exactly why purchasing of new rolling stock is the #1 priority right now. We have set aside $200 million for purchasing new locomotives and new cars right now. In fact, as I was speaking with my friends from the MPO this week, you know, we initially set aside $8 million per locomotive. We're finding out, we're in negotiations right now with Siemens. Each locomotive is now running at $12 million for one locomotive. We'll be purchasing 7 locomotives. That agreement is going to our board in December. And then we will be going into negotiations on the cars. However, I just want to temper all the expectations. Unfortunately, it will take 3 years before we see those new locomotives. And it will take 5 years before we see those new cars. Because that's just the nature of the industry. There's only maybe 2 manufacturers of locomotives in the country. And so you basically have to get in line. We are piggybacking on a contract right now for our locomotives. And so that allows us to get it a little quicker within 3 years. So that's one of the biggest challenge with our system right now. Again, apologies for that experience. We cannot control, sometimes when there's accidents on the corridor or when the trains break down. What we try to do is to give as much communication as possible to passengers. As for the restrooms, yes, there are restrooms on the train. In terms of putting restrooms at our stations, that probably, it's my understanding, that's not something that the agency will be doing at this time, because there's just a lot of liability with putting those restrooms at the station. There's 2 stations that have restrooms right now, our Miami Central Station and our Miami Airport Station. So that's why, there are restrooms on the train. So again, yeah, that's just the nature of the system, unfortunately.
Thank you, Lorraine. All right. Thank you very much for that update. Wish you and the staff and the SFRTA the best of luck over the next coming months as you work through the legislative
challenge,
session
yep.
gearing up. We, if there's anything that we can do, I'm sure this will be more actively discussed at the governing board, and I'm not sure what action they will be able to take, but yeah, obviously I think it goes without saying that this board supports Tri-Rail and everything it does, and it's a no-brainer that it's a system that needs to continue to operate for the sustainability and the traffic flow for the county. So hopefully there's some sense that's made this session and reinstates the funding for the system.
We have
but
had
it
a
doesn't-
lot of support from the region, throughout the region. So again, thank you for that.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I think I close. That is the end of the informational items. That brings us to administrative items. 4A through 4C are informational only, so there's no presentation unless anybody wants. Seeing none, our next TAC meeting is scheduled for February 4th. So wishing you all a very healthy, happy holiday season, and see you all in the